What was sex like when you got sober? Was it awkward or was it natural?
Having sex sober for pretty much the first time in my life at 29. Let's see, did I have sex when I first got sober? I don't think I hardly had any. No, I did. Okay, I'll start over. Having sex for the first time sober, or one of the first times ever sober, at 29 was a completely different experience than the sex I'd been used to for the 15 years before. It was the most awkward thing ever. I was utterly self-conscious and inhibited. It felt like a completely different experience in total. So in fact, a lot of weird things were happening early in sobriety that made it even more complicated. For one thing, like a lot of people in sobriety, not everyone by any means, but strangely, a lot of people in sobriety, myself included, completely lose their sex drive, literally overnight. The day I quit drinking, I went from having as high a sex drive as anyone I've ever met to having none at all. A year and a half later, I moved to Austin and my sex drive comes roaring back like stronger than I'd ever experienced in my life, which was saying something. The first 2 years of my sobriety, sex was nothing like I had experienced before. And then eventually it all started kind of falling into place and eventually became way, way, way better than it ever was when I was drinking. But it definitely took time, 2 or 3 years, probably, at least, maybe 4.
So how did dating play out for you in sobriety? Was it hard to meet people or be yourself? Was it hard to feel attractive or find attractive people? Did anything change?
Yeah, dating. So when it came to not just having like a fuck buddy, but actually trying to date, like meet someone, flirt with him or convey that I was attracted to see if he might, pick up on that or be attracted back. If we start to have a conversation, will he ask me out? All of that kind of stuff. And then like actually going out and dating. That was all, it was so much more complicated than it used to be because you used to just have some drinks, let a guy flirt, or come on to a guy and he'd either kind of pass or pick up on it and you'd go home and have sex. And then if he was still there in the morning and you still liked each other, you'd exchange numbers and then you'd start dating. It seemed a lot simpler and you couldn't really do that in sobriety. So because I had such a huge fear of rejection, I had kind of low self-esteem and I felt like, oh, maybe I'm kind of cute, but I just didn't feel attractive. Like I didn't feel like I'd just attractive on the inside, like I was constantly like flirting a little bit. And then I would shut it down and wait for the guy to pick up on it, which rarely he would because I wasn't very good at it. I was always too subtle. And then maybe he would pick up on it. And then I tried to get him to chase me. But a lot of guys aren't going to just chase you right off the bat. Like, why would they? You need to put out a little effort. But I didn't want to put out effort because if I could get a guy to chase me, then that would boost my self-esteem. So it was like this constant game playing that I was doing. So I dated unavailable guys, logistically unavailable, emotionally unavailable, physically unavailable, because that way, I could never feel fully rejected. Like I had such a fear of rejection. I thought if I date unavailable guys, then I'm never really at risk of being rejected because they're not really available. So they can't really reject you. Like it was this whole twisted way of trying to experience intimacy without ever having to risk the vulnerability of genuinely being intimate. And that went on for almost 6 years into my sobriety. It was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, slow progress. I don't know about other people in sobriety, but for me, it was a good 6 years before you could even say I was dating in a semi-healthy way.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
From the beginning, when you gave that answer, you were saying that you had like some self-esteem problems, things like that. You had doubts. Are you meaning to say that you were afraid that people wouldn't like you and love you for who you really are?
Absolutely. Like a lot of people, when I first got sober, all I could see was the wreckage of my past, all the mistakes I'd made, all the opportunities I'd blown, all the poor treatment I'd perpetuated on others, all my failures, all my flaws. That's all I could see. And you try so hard to think positively and to focus on your strengths and to rebuild your life, but it's a slow process. And so you're kind of consumed with the guilt and shame that most people who are drinking and using experience, and that stays with you for a long time in sobriety, is overwhelming. And we do our best to hide it because it's so unattractive. I don't think most people around someone who's new in sobriety really grasps how much guilt and shame they walk around with on a daily basis for having screwed up so much of their life and having hurt so many people and hurt their family members and their loved ones. And so you just walk around with a lot of low self-esteem, and you do anything you can to try to boost that self-esteem. And one of those things is you use intimate connections. You use how many people can I go to bed with? Not just men, but a lot of women do that too. Like if I can get this really hot guy to fuck me, then that says I'm attractive. If I can make a bunch of money, I was a workaholic because I thought that the more money I made, the better person I was. It was a quantifiable way of boosting my self-esteem. There was this constant game you're playing in your head to boost your self-esteem in every way except the right way. Well, hopefully you're doing that too, which is like rebuilding your life and doing well at your job and showing up and going to meetings and working on your personality flaws. But people can use dating and sex in a way that's very unhealthy to boost their self-esteem in early sobriety. And that's where a lot of the challenges and the fumbles come in.
How long did it take you to get into a healthy relationship? And what was your biggest challenges that you faced and continue to face?
The first time I dated someone regularly, I was 6 years sober. That lasted about a month. So I won't really count that as a relationship. I was 10 years sober when I was in my first actual relationship, and it lasted a year. And it was with a wonderful guy who had a lot of issues, probably not many more than myself at the time. And it was a very healing experience because we really loved each other. We both really needed to be loved and appreciated and nurtured in that way. My biggest challenge in that relationship was learning this one skill that to this day I consider the number one skill to establish healthy relationships, but also the number one life skill. It's the PhD of life skills, and that's boundary setting. I was terrible at setting boundaries. The lessons I learned up until then were about learning to allow myself to be vulnerable, to accept the fact that some guys are going to reject me, and that's perfectly okay. I didn't have to take it personally. And even if it was personal, that wasn't that big of a deal because there was always another one around the corner. And then authenticity, just learning to be open about what I want and what I need in a relationship and not be so much of a people pleaser. And then learning boundary setting. Those are the three most important skills when it comes to dating, I think. And so finally learning boundary setting skills, well, that was kind of a lifetime lesson, but that really started in earnest 10 years in when I had my first relationship, I think.
For somebody in early sobriety who wants to start dating, what is your best advice?
So in yoga, there's a saying that I hear sometimes, and it goes something like, form is more important than depth. And I always think that that's a perfect bit of advice for dating, especially early on. It's more important to get the dynamic right than it is to dive headfirst into this deeply intense, monogamous, committed relationship where you're all enmeshed and up in each other's lives and combining finances and moving in and planning a future. Just slow down and get a healthy dynamic going between the two of you. Just make sure that you're being vulnerable. You're not playing games. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're being authentic. You're letting them know what you really want out of life and out of a relationship, what you really need, what's working for you, what's not. And do all this just a little at a time, slowly, as you're getting to know each other and things come up. Don't plan so much about, I'm really looking for marriage or let's be together for 5 years. Form is more important than depth. You don't have to get in a committed relationship in the first 6 months. You can date someone casually for 6 months or a year. And you can date someone exclusively for 6 months or a year before you develop like some real commitment. Like, just slow the heck down. Form is more important than depth. Okay, so my second book came out yesterday, Casey Dancer, a memoir about dating, stripping, and a little hot yoga. And it is already #1 in the category of dance on Amazon, which is delightful because it's only a little bit about stripping. But it is a follow-up to my first memoir, Rock Monster, My Life with Joe Walsh, which is an addiction memoir and a celebrity relationship memoir. And you can find both of those books anywhere that books are sold. And if you want to know more about me or find my social media channels, everything is on KristinCasey.com, which is KristinCasey.com. And I hope you go there and check it all out. Thanks. Bye.